How many are we?
It's 1, 2, 3.
Hello.
And then we got Sarah.
Whoa.
Charles,
Hi.
we have
Big
Laura.
How many of us are there?
I'm gonna order.
Hi. Sorry, I'm late.
All my life, I knew I had a missing piece.
I mean, how often does one get to date life?
Your energy is literally like there's a gas fire in the kitchen right now. What is that?
It's medical marijuana in this delicious, cute little gummy bear. I was just gonna have you eat the head. You're gonna be so high.
Why do you want to do this every week?
What? No, family is gross, but it's important.
Thanks so much for being here.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you for having us.
Of course, congratulations on the next season of the show and seasons past. I love Transparent. It's a wonderful show. Thank you.
We love you.
Oh, thank you. But let's talk about Sunday. Transparent has a float in the Pride Parade. Talk about that. How did that happen?
A big gay float for the big gay parade because we're big gay girls.
That's right.
That's how it happens.
What can we expect from this float?
Scantily
Titties.
clothed.
No.
Wow.
Is that right?
I'm speaking for myself.
Okay, good.
Naked
Thank
at
God,
Pride.
because yeah, I'm covered up. I'm the elderly lady, so I have to cover myself up. You know what's great about this for me is the there's such great history in the New York Parade. You know, the New York Parade began as a revolution that was strategically planned by a group of people right after Stonewall to show the heteronormative community not only that we exist, but that we need to be honored, revered, and respected. So the fact that we're all in this parade together is not only historic, it's quite profound. So I've been in a couple of other Pride parades, but this is really, really special. I'm 55 years old. I'm a trans woman of color. I've been living with AIDS for almost 3 decades. So the fact that, we were just talking about this in the car, the fact that I'm here and present is enough of a gift, but the fact that we're all in this parade together is quite extraordinary.
Pride began as a protest.
Clap. Let's clap for that. Yes.
Pride began as a protest, not as a parade, and I think it's important to remember that, especially right now where we're at. Even though it will be a joyous festivity, it is a political statement as well.
And after Stonewall, I mean, trans folks were really pushed to the periphery. I think especially in New York, there's this legendary Sylvia Rivera video where she's on stage kind of like claiming her space and being kind of like pushed off to the side.
And booed.
Washington Square, yeah.
And it's such an honor, I think, for, to be a part of Transparent, to be a part of a big kind of phenomenon in the cultural canon, to kind of like put trans folks to the front. To kind of like,
Especially in regards to Stonewall, because as you said, they were pushed to the side, but what most people don't know is that they were at the forefront of Stonewall. They were sort of leading the protests at that time and leading the fight.
Marsha P. Johnson, Sylvia Rivera, Miss Major, Griffin Gracie, and plenty of other trans and gender nonconforming people really, threw the first brick, so to speak. And a lot of people still don't know that because they keep making movies and leaving us out of our own history. So, I mean, it is very prideful, not to sound cliche, but for us to be on a float repping for Pride, carrying on the legacy of trans women.
And celebrating and having a good time, being so present and loud and taking up so much space is really a gift. So the joy is it also needs to we need to draw a big circle around the joy as well.
Absolutely, and you're also repping this show, which is a huge building block in trans rights. I mean, just since this show came out, I think 3-4 years ago, right? There's just been I think the visibility of the trans community has been humongous, and people have opened doors, or at least opened their minds to the community much more than prior to the show. Does it feel that way?
I think that we've come leaps and bounds. I don't think that any of us expected to see that within our lifetimes, and it's been incredible to kind of to be a part of a movement, and what's really kind of become a movement. I mean, I think that a few years ago we'd have said that like trans community, the notion of a trans community was sort of
Absolutely. 5 years ago, I think if you said that most people know what that means now. And if you said
Yeah.
that to most people 5 years ago, I think outside of the LGBTQ circles, they would kind of be like, what's that? And they would get sort of defensive because they didn't know about it, and it would lead to an argument, and everyone would get mad. And now it's kind of like, oh, okay, I think I might know what that means.
Yeah, despite the fact that we've been present since the earliest human civilizations, trans people have been around.
And that's what it felt like to walk in a room as a trans person 5 years ago. And that's why unemployment and HIV rates and housing discrimination has been so prevalent in our community. Because we walk into a room and people are like, what the F is that? Like, who the F are you? What are you doing? And it's like, I'm just living my life. And without the education of shows like Transparent, without Pride, people don't know who we are. And that's what makes this weekend so momentous as well, is we're further spreading the education so that people can just go about living their lives.
Absolutely. What was it like for you when you first joined the show?
When I first joined, I joined season 2, and Zachary was one of the first people on board with Transparent, and Jill Soloway, Zachary, and Reese Ernst.
Went to college with Reese.
Yeah, you went to Hampshire.
Yeah.
Awesome,
We
Hampshire
love
alums.
Reese. So they were instrumental in producing and in the authenticity of the show for season 1. And then Jill acknowledged that they needed a writer in the trans writer in the room, and so she brought me on board. And it's been a crazy ride. It's been wonderful being able to give a voice to these characters played by Alex and Trace, and to bring some real life experience onto the show. It's a great responsibility, but also a great joy.
What's it been like for you to be on the show?
It's extraordinary. I knew Jill and Faith, her sister, the Soloway sisters, for 25 years back in Chicago when they were doing a show called Co-ed Prison Sluts. And I was doing, it's true, and I was doing a show across town called Cannibal Cheerleaders on Crack. And yes, welcome to my career. And
There's footage of cannibal cheerleaders on crack
yes,
anywhere?
which you will not see. And so
It sounds incredible.
it is. I was excellent, and I was very good in it. And we knew each other. There was an actress whose name is Susan Messing, who's still an actress and a great teacher, and she was in Co-ed Prison Sluts, and she was leaving for about a week. So Jill called me and said, "Listen, you're across town doing Cannibal Cheerleaders on Crack, but your show starts at 8. And our show doesn't start till 11. So could you do Cannibal Cheerleaders and then come over and just like step into Co-ed Prison Sluts?" And I said, sure. And so because I was on a lot of cocaine at the time, because it was the 80s, and so I did that, and that's how we met.
That's what everyone says about cocaine, though. They reference the decade. Like,
Cocaine
oh,
is
the 90s,
great.
that was the
Well,
70s.
it was great
Like,
back
every
in the
decade,
day. Yeah,
everyone was
it's
on
not
cocaine.
the same anymore. I actually don't know if that's true or not. No, yes, that's got me through a lot of tough times. Anyway, so I did that, and then we sort of weaved in and out of each other's lives for a while, and one day I got this message on the Facebook from Faith, and she writes me and she says, "My parent is transitioning, and we really don't know what to do or we don't know what to do." So we corresponded back and forth, and then she said, "Oh, by the way, we're doing this show we want you to audition for, and it's going to be on Amazon." And I went, "You mean the place that sells books?" And she says, "Yeah." And I went, "Okay," thinking, well, nobody's going to see it. But I knew how, well, because this was a long time ago, but I knew
It was
how.
Amazon's like first show or second show at the time. No one really knew.
Wasn't it?
It was the first hit show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I sort of went, okay, but I knew how brilliant they both were, how extraordinarily intelligent they both were. And because their parent was transitioning, I knew that this story was coming from someplace true. So then I auditioned for it, and I'll tell you the interesting thing, I don't know if this was true for you, Trace, at the auditions. I had never seen actually that many trans women audition for a role that were trained, intelligent, witty actresses. I mean, I thought when I went into, this is how full of shit I am, I thought when I went in, can I say that word?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I
Talk
went
about cocaine in the 80s, you can say shit.
Really? Okay, thank God. But I went in thinking, oh, well, you know, who's going to be here? Because I was used to auditioning with myself and, 2 other people. And that was the real joy for me, was that we're so many, because you were at the audition, all of us were at this audition. So there were so many women auditioning for this role. That's what gave me sort of hope for this show, because I thought, okay, it's reaching more people already.
Right, the doors are more doors are open already.
Yep.
And when did you join the show? You joined the show season 3, right?
No, honey. I was there since the get-go. Season 1, I auditioned for the Davina role and got a call back, flew out, didn't get it, and then I got a call from, or an email from Jill saying that they were going to do this whole yoga teacher friend, smaller role. Can you put yourself on tape? So I did that. And then they were like, okay, it's yours. So then 1 episode turned into 2, and then I didn't know what I was going to do because I was, being a guest star sometimes is a little, you don't know which way's up, And so I was stripping all over Manhattan and Queens. And I had just shot a pilot, an NBC pilot in Puerto Rico that did not get picked up. And I was gagging. I was like, oh my God, I have to go back to the strip club. What am I going to do? I've already been out there. My tea is exposed. And then I got a call for season 2, and they put me in half the episodes. So that really allowed me to literally clean out my locker and start acting full time. Because I had been kind of navigating the acting world prior to that stealth, and this was like my coming out party. My first 2 jobs, I didn't disclose that I was trans, and that's how I kind of dealt with the industry, because that's how I was taught to be by my first acting teacher and everyone I had, kind of looked up to.
What do you mean taught you to be? Like taught you?
Well, when you pass, you kind of get access to more things. And back in the day, 10 years ago or more, there were not very many trans roles. So I was told, if you want to work, just don't tell anybody. If you want to have a job, if you want to have a future in this industry, just don't talk about it. You can go out for regular cis female roles. No one has to know. My agent knew, and that was it. So transparent was like my leap of faith. And so that's why it was so scary for me before season 2, because I was like, damn, I just outed myself, and I don't know what the fuck's going to happen. Am I going to lose my bread and butter at the strip club? What am I going to do? So that's how it came to be. And I guess, I was rewarded for just stepping into my truth. It's like the world, the universe was just waiting for me to kind of step into it.
Can I ask you a potentially cliche question?
Sure.
That period of time where you had to pass an audition and you auditioned for cisgender roles without being able to sort of come out of the closet and talk about who you were, what did that period of time feel like?
Well, I was so programmed to just kind of snap into character. Like literally when I would go into the audition room to audition for a cis role, I would just, there's a certain way of being that I would embody. Same thing with the strip club. There's certain slang I wouldn't use. It was literally like living in character part-time. And it was the greatest acting exercise ever, because I did it for years. But I have a different way of being around my people. And I think we all do that kind of coding around different groups of people. We have this chameleon-like ability to kind of to compartmentalize and get through life. And so that's what I did. But I remember being on Law & Order for one of my first guest spots and just feeling uneasy. And also it was around the time that Orange is the New Black hit, and Laverne, who'd been a friend of mine for 10 years, was, it was blowing up. And I was just kind of feeling like no, that is what I want. I want to be fully transparent, no pun intended, about what I am and what I've been through in my journey, because there's merit in what I've been through, and I don't want to hide my journey or my struggle or my brilliance, So after that, I learned to kind of harness it. I went to an LGBT acting class with Laverne, and found access. I gained access to all these different parts of myself that I didn't even know I could use in my acting work, which I say today is like a secret weapon for trans actors, which is why I think we can go on and play non-trans roles and be brilliant at it, because we have such a rich experience that can be put up and through the text and aid us in character work, whether the character is trans or not. So I think that is the future, is us getting back to playing any role, not just trans roles.
Absolutely. Zachary, you've been a part of the show really since the beginning as a producer, right?
Yeah, I came on. Jill was kind of like writing the pilot. It was just the script, and she had met my collaborator Reese Ernst, who I produce with, at Sundance. I think in like 2011, maybe. And reached out to us and kind of like asked her resources for her parent, and then she wrote this incredible script, and we knew that it was it. We were kind of like read this script and had that feeling that you get when something is solid. I think within the realm of representation with trans folks, we've been so maligned for so long. We've always been the butts of jokes and these kinds of like sensationalized reveals, like Ace Ventura, Pet Detective was a movie I remember seeing as a kid, or like Silence of the Lambs, or Psycho, or Sleepaway Camp, or sex workers on crime shows.
Hangover.
And talk
They
shows.
get murdered and stuffed in the toilet.
Totally. And we always knew, I mean, I felt, in seeing those representations that, okay, there's something like my experience out there, but I don't necessarily want to be that. And being a part of a show that's reinvented trans representation and created a humanizing and authentic rendering is just such an honor, and I think we're all so grateful to kind of be on this ship together.
It's interesting, those roles that you brought up, or those movies and TV shows that you brought up before, are really the most sort of malicious portrayals of trans folks at that time. But then there's also the ones that, even if they were humanizing, they were tragic at the end. I think of something like The Adventures of Sebastian Cole, which is about a trans parent. So it's hard not a parent that is trans. But who ends up sort of, without reason really, passing away at the end of the movie, which still sort of promotes this idea that like this life cannot be lived, to its fullest extent in our world.
Which is true. I mean, we have staggering obstacles, I think, in life, particularly for trans women of color who are victims of violence and assault. I think 13 trans women of color have been murdered this year in the first 6 months. That's one a week, one every 2 weeks. We have kind of real issues, and it's the best of times and the worst of times simultaneously. And it's a precarious position, I think, sometimes for us to be kind of sitting here and enjoying these moments, but also recognizing that so many of our siblings out there, our trans and gender nonconforming siblings, are struggling to survive.
Can you talk a little bit about the evolution of the show from the working on the pilot to now? Because I feel like the show, as a viewer of the show, I always felt like it started from this place of like Jeffrey Tambor's character transitioning to a woman, and almost like you're gonna have to forgive my lack of vocabulary sometimes on this, but a sort of gender binary place that's very easy to understand for a lot of people.
That's no lack of vocabulary.
Thank you.
Most people don't know.
It was very good vocabulary, actually.
The show has kind of evolved into being much more about a sort of gender fluidity and spectrum, and sexuality fluidity and spectrum, which is, it leads to incredibly beautiful scenes, but it also leads to, it's just a different place that I think the show has progressed and evolved into. Can you talk about that evolution?
Yeah, I want to give you guys a chance to talk about it too, but I think that the thing that's so incredible about like a serialized narrative is that you can go really deep with these characters, and our show gets more and more complex. And I think the characters become more human increasingly, and it wasn't front-loaded, like we didn't kind of pack everything into that first season, and so we're able to kind of draw things out and get deeper. And I don't think we've ever seen a trans person evolve over, 15, now it's going to be 20 hours of content. So it's a tremendous opportunity.
And also we respond to where the world is right now. When the show first began, it was really a teaching point. And then Caitlyn Jenner came out, and suddenly everyone's like, oh, I know what trans is. And then we had the show as well. So we can go a little deeper. And in the writer's room, we talk about, well, how much does the world know? How much do we have to teach? How much nuance can we have in these characters? And ideally, like, nuance is the place where I want to live. It's like, I don't want to have to be a teacher all the time, but where we're at, we do have to teach. And so I think it's really a testament to how the world has grown as well, that we're able to have these deeper conversations about transness, about leaving the binary, about gender fluidity. And season 4, I'm actually really excited about where we go.
Give us a tease.
With that, well, there's a lot of there's a new gender non-conforming plot line that happens, and that's all I'm gonna say.
Let's get some questions from the audience. Who has some questions out here?
Good morning. This is a question for Trace. Trace, when I saw that water park scene, like everyone else that saw it, it left me shook. So I would just love to hear about how you prepared for filming it, like what it was like filming it, and how you felt after.
Yeah, those 2 days we shot out in Palmdale, which is like this very barren, Breaking Bad type of city out in California. As far as preparation, I feel like it was my life. I've definitely had a hard time navigating love as a trans woman. And feeling my journey coupled with my sisters, trying to find acceptance in this world while keeping your head above water and not wanting to be someone's toy or adventure. And then that added layer of the HIV disclosure. I mean, it was such heavy material. It was like such a gift to get as an actor, because it's like, oh my God, finally I can feel something real and dig deep and purge it all for people to consume and learn from. And I didn't know how I was going to deliver that day. I just knew how important it was. I felt an immense responsibility to myself and my sisters, my trans brothers and sisters. And I had Jill directing me that day. I had Our Lady J on set with me, and Rain Valdez, who is also a trans woman. And Jay Duplass was amazing. And so I felt very taken care of, and I felt like I could just go there. And we let it be raw and gritty and real and organic. And it was kind of the perfect storm in that way.
I don't think you could ask for a smarter, sweeter, cisgender, straight, white guy than Jay Duplass.
He's very woke, yes. Let him be the blueprint for the rest of the men in the world. We need more evolved men like Jay Duplass.
On set, he came up to me that day, and because a lot of the story was based on a romantic experience that I was going through at the time, and he just said, "I'm sorry." He looked at me, and he said, "I'm sorry," and hugged me. And I felt like a lot of our cis allies on set, actors, crew, writers, producers, they're so woke when it comes to transness, which is why this show is so successful. It's that they acknowledge our experience on set and off set and are really able to hold us and see us.
And I think what really marks this time as different, too, is that we have allies. I think for so long we were satellites and we were out there on our own, not even necessarily together or in solidarity with each other. And not only do we have a sense of community and unity, we also have allies that have shown up.
Absolutely. Next question.
Thank goddess.
Hey everyone, I'm just wondering, like, with the show, like, how much input do you all have with the script? Like, do you draw on, like, personal experiences or, like, from others as well?
It's a mixture of personal experiences and experiences that our community is going through. We have a daily email that one of our PAs puts together called the Trans Daily Digest, and it's every news article about every trans thing every single day. So we're really aware of what the community is going through. But when you write, it's always from an emotional place, so it is from a personal space. And then it's like, well, will that storyline serve the show? Will it serve the world? And so it's really a combination of all those things.
I never feel tied to the script. For example, there's a scene in the car with Jay in season 3 where I'm talking about getting rid of certain genitalia and, giving up an income because of that. And I quoted something from my real life trans auntie, Portia LaBeija, God rest her soul, about, you know what they say, Miss Shay, girl, a chick with a dick is always paid. And she used to say that to me when I was a working girl in the village. And, you know, that was the mindset. And so Jill was there when I improv that line, and she was like, go with it. You know, so we have this great outline of a script, but our brilliance never is you know, whatever is organic and wants to come through is allowed to come through, and Jill welcomes that.
And that's why it's so important to hire trans actors in trans roles, because you can't get that otherwise. And I think like that's Jill's brilliance, is that they acknowledge the experience that every single trans person brings to the show, whether it's in camera department or PAs. Like every single person matters on this show, and the show is alive because of that.
Have you noticed that since the beginning of the show that essentially hiring the crew all around you, they also had to be in some ways an ally and at the very least sensitive to the subjects that you were exploring?
Oh, absolutely. And that was, you know, Jill's initiative. We call it the Transformative Action Hiring Program. So from the very beginning, I think we kind of talked about the fact that employment discrimination was a huge impediment in the trans community, and made it our goal to hire one trans or gender nonconforming person in every department. So it's, you know, not only the writing, but it's, you know, the directing, the producing, the camera, the costumes, the, you know, production office. I think that, you know, there's trans folks in every stage of development kind of weighing in, and it does imbue the world of transparent with a level of authenticity that wouldn't be there otherwise.
Have you noticed minds get changed from the crew? Like some
completely.
grip or something that's,
Oh,
I never thought about it that way.
The transpo guys are like are my biggest fans in the world, I think. I don't think any man has ever loved me as much as the drivers in the transportation department.
It's true.
Like I've worked with transpo guys before, and I love that idea of them like having
Love
this
Joel,
mind shift
yeah.
and being like, I love you guys.
Well, we have a thing on set called The Box every morning where everyone can get up and talk about their feelings first thing in the morning. And that is it's never been done before. And I feel like the crew are the people who get up and talk about how their lives have opened because of the show and because of being around people who they would have never been around before.
That's really beautiful. I think we have time for one more question.
Hi. So it looks like you guys have an incredible cast and crew that you're always surrounded by. Are there any behind-the-scenes stories that you can tell us?
What kind?
That would be, I know. I can't think of.
kind?
You know what's sad is that there isn't a bad apple in the bunch. There really isn't anything. I mean, I don't have any.
I wish there were.
Yeah, that'd be, be something to.
That we could gossip about.
I
We
know.
have something to feel negative and terrible about.
I can't think of. I mean, there's been moments on set when we've gotten cranky and tired and people have, you know, behaved badly, but.
Oh, I'll tell you something.
Oh, you can?
I'll tell you something.
Let's not. Don't get
Every
fired.
single day in the writer's room, we fight about lunch. Where we're gonna order from. Allie Liebegot always wants meatball subs.
That's the big thing.
And I want sushi.
That's the big thing.
That's the big thing.
That's
We
the
never
thing.
agree on lunch.
Lunch. That's what we can tell you.
Meatball subs versus sushi?
Yes.
That is two very different sides of the spectrum on that one. That's a hard place to come to a middle ground on. I love the show so much. Congratulations on 3 seasons and the 4th season that's coming out. And Sunday, you will be on the Transparent Float in the Pride Parade. I can't wait to
right.
see you. Everybody, go out to Pride this Sunday. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Thanks, you guys.
Thank you. Thank you.